The Nativity story may not be historically accurate. According to Christian tradition, the Nativity accounts in the Gospels of Matthew and Luke provide the cornerstone narratives of Jesus Christ's birth. Believers assert that these accounts depict real historical events: the virgin birth, the journey to Bethlehem, and the visit of the Magi, among others. These stories are foundational for the Christian faith, framing Jesus as the prophesied Messiah born in divine circumstances. However, let's examine the historical and textual evidence. Two Gospels cover the Nativity, Matthew and Luke. Both place Jesus' birth in Bethlehem, but their accounts diverge significantly in detail and context. Matthew 2:1-12 describes the visit of the Magi, King Herod's massacre of infants, and the family's flight to Egypt. Luke 2:1-20 tells of a census decreed by Caesar Augustus, shepherds visiting the newborn, and the family's presentation at the temple in Jerusalem. One key contradiction involves the timing of the census. Luke mentions a census conducted by Quirinius, governor of Syria, which likely occurred in 6 CE. Yet Matthew's narrative implies Jesus was born during Herod the Great's reign, which ended in 4 BCE. This creates a chronological discrepancy. It's nearly a decade apart. A study by historian Emil Schurer supports this gap, noting the implausibility of these events occurring simultaneously. Further scrutiny reveals differences in genealogies. Matthew traces Jesus' lineage through David's son Solomon, Matthew 1:6, whereas Luke traces it through Nathan, Luke 3:31. Real historical genealogies, documented by scholars such as E.P. Sanders, suggest that such divergences challenge the reliability of these accounts as consistent historical records. The strongest counter-argument relies on harmonizing these gospel accounts. Proponents argue that historical records from antiquity often lacked precision, and that both accounts can be reconciled if understood metaphorically or theologically, rather than strictly historically. They might cite Raymond Brown, a respected biblical scholar, who suggests that the theological intent behind these stories transcends their historical discrepancies. However, this defense collapses under scrutiny. Historical inquiry demands consistency and corroboration. Theological interpretations cannot resolve factual contradictions or align disparate timelines. If the Nativity were historical, external evidence or corroboration from other contemporary sources would likely exist. Yet, as New Testament scholar Bart Ehrman notes, no external records from the period corroborate the census or Herod's massacre, events that presumably would have left historical traces. Moreover, the Nativity story contains philosophical paradoxes. The virgin birth, a miraculous event, is not verifiable by historical methods. While believers accept it on faith, history requires evidence. The absence of external records and the contradictions within the biblical texts suggest that these stories may have been constructed for theological purposes rather than as factual accounts. In conclusion, when examined through the lens of historical and textual analysis, the Nativity accounts in Matthew and Luke do not hold up as historically accurate narratives. The contradictions, lack of external corroboration, and reliance on theological rather than empirical validation lead to the conclusion that these stories serve more as theological constructs than historical records. Are the Nativity accounts faith or historical fact?